Well, I started my own lean journey, if you will, in January of 1982. But at the time, it was only $1 billion.
Only a billion.
Yeah, only $1 billion, yeah. This is the greatest strategic weapon we've ever seen before. We made a lot of progress. I mean, we established 5 key things that we wanted to do. These were, we increased the enterprise value by 2,500% over that time frame.
Is there any closing words that you would give small entrepreneurs? Okay, so we just wrapped up what's going to definitely be our most popular podcast ever, because we had world famous Art Byrne sitting with us, and he was the author of The Lean Turnaround. Now, on his way out, he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, do you want a copy of that?" And he hands me the Lean Turnaround Action Guide. Yes, I want a copy of an action guide, and so do you. So not only do you get the Lean Turnaround, you can get the Lean Turnaround Action Guide. And then if you have any questions lingering around, the Lean Turnaround Answer Book. I mean, like, what more do you want? Art has got you covered. Don't walk, run. Get these books. Welcome to our podcast, Art. We have a podcast called On the Shop Floor, where we're primarily in the manufacturing space, helping out small, medium, and large manufacturers. And I'm here at the Northeastern Lean Conference, and very rarely do I get to sit in the presence of greatness. So thank you for taking the time to sit and chat with me. Art is the author of The Lean Turnaround. If you haven't heard about this one already, shame on you, but now we have the Lean Turnaround Answer Book as well. So don't walk, run out, get yourself a copy of this, and then for the next 20 or 30 minutes, we've got Art as our captive audience. I'm going to ask you as many questions as I possibly can.
Yes, you can. Well, thank you, Brad. Nice to be with you. It's always nice to be on the shop floor.
Okay, so I would just love to get maybe a little bit of your history, just the smallest snapshot you could. Tell us, where have you been? How have you got there?
Okay, fine. Well, I started my own lean journey, if you will, in January of 1982. It's my first general manager job at the General Electric Company. And I was in the lighting business group, and I was making the big outdoor bulbs that you see, street lights and in a high factory bill, that kind of stuff. And one of my suppliers was another part of the lighting business group. They were supplying these arc tubes to me that went into our bulbs. And the operations guy from that business and my operations manager had gone to a seminar in Japan that GE Corporate Manufacturing had sponsored, and they had to do a report 6 months later of what they did as a result. So they decided to just create a Kanban system and then report on that. And so when I got there, they asked if it was okay. I said, fine, I think that's a good idea. And so we did that. We bought a small truck and we created Kanban cards. Their factory was about 45 minutes from mine. And every day it would come and we'd give them the Kanban cards from what we used the day before. And they'd bring them back the next day, the arc tubes. And that's what we did. Now, what happened was my inventory went from 43 days of arc tubes to 3. Their inventory went from maybe 60 days. They had this huge room full of nothing but my arc tubes. And they emptied it out. So they went from like 60 days to 0. But of course, at the time, GE didn't care about inventory reduction. They only cared about make the month. That was it. If you didn't make the month, you were a bad guy. But anyway, we've dropped the inventory dramatically, but the side benefits were enormous. Our productivity got better, our quality got better, our factory was cleaner, our accident level went down, our employees were happier, our customer service was better. I said, holy smokes, just by reducing inventory, I get in all these side benefits. Any company I run from now on, I want to learn more about this, and I want to use this approach to do that. So that's what happened. I eventually, a couple of years later, I left GE, and I became a group executive at the Danaher Corporation. Danaher at that time was about $1 billion in sales. Today it's over 20, but at the time it was only $1 billion.
Only $1 billion.
Yeah, only $1 billion, yeah. And we had 13 companies. I had 8 of them, and we had another group executive. He had the other 5. And so one of my companies, where my office was actually in their building, was a company called Jacobs Brake. And Jake Brake made engine retarders for big diesel trucks. And the business was a mess, and it was about ready. We thought it might go out of business. And the guy who ran it was a guy named George Konensaker, and he and I decided, we got to use lean. At the time, it was just called just in time. Right. We got to use just in time to try and fix this. So we started out with Arthur Anderson Consulting, and they were helping us do this. But of course, they were a big U.S. consulting firm, lots of PowerPoint presentations, lots of cost, very slow. But we did create a couple of cells. And we had been reading a book called Kaizen that was done by a guy named Masaki Amai. And we were learning a lot from that book. And anyway, we noticed that Masai Amai was having a conference in Hartford. We were just down the street from Hartford, and on Kaizen. So we signed up, about 5 or 6 people, went to the conference. I could only be there the first 2 days, but Konensaker brought 5 of his people, stayed the whole week. And Amai wasn't a consultant, so he brought in a group called Shinjitsu, who was a newly formed consulting firm they were out of Toyota, and they did the training for the first 2 days. And then the next 3 days were spent in somebody's factory. So we watched this and we said, these are the guys we need. They're the ones that created this stuff with Ono. They had worked for Ono directly for 10 years. So we need to get these guys to work for us. So Konensaker took on the job, and he hounded them all week long. He got them out to our factory at like midnight one night. They came back on Thursday afternoon when I could be there, and we walked around with them. And then Saturday morning, before they left, they came back and we talked to them again. We said, you got to come and consult for us. And they said, well, it's too far away. We're too old. We don't speak any English, blah, blah, blah. And we said, no. You don't understand. We have great steaks and lobsters and golf. We have golf. Oh, they love golf. So I think golf won. So anyway, they came back, and this was like in May or June. They came back in August for the first Kaizen, and we did it in a sister company called Jacobs Chuck down in Clemson, South Carolina. So we go down there, and we're in our blue jeans and our golf shirts. They're in suits and ties. We don't know how to work with them. So we do the introduction, then we said, let's take a plant tour. And they said, okay. We got the plant tour. We got about 100 yards into the plant, maybe not even that. And they said, oh, time out. We've seen enough. Let's go back. We said, but the plant tour usually takes an hour and a half. No, we've seen enough. Go back in the conference room. The water goes up on the board, and he writes in big letters, he writes, no good. And he turns around, and he says, look, everything here is no good. What do you want to do about it? So we said, okay. So we said, well, we want to do something about our industrial trucks because that's where we make the most money and blah. So he signs 2 of the other guys. Says, okay, you go work on that. He says, I like assembly. I'm going to work on assembly. So myself and the president of Jacobs Chuck, we said, well, let's stick with him and we'll go to assembly. So we go out in the assembly area, and we have like 4 of these conveyor belt assembly lines. First thing he says is, I hate conveyor belt assembly lines. Get rid of the conveyor belts. We're like, whoa, okay.
Really?
Yeah. But then he took us back and forth, and he was showing us why they were no good and explaining to us, and so we.
Why was that? Will I railroad the story if I ask? Like the conveyor belt assembly line seems like a good idea.
Well, because the way that the whole thing was working, there was just a lot of waste in the line. One person, the pace of each person was different, and it wasn't balanced, and it was just a lot of inventory, and he explained to us. So we got rid of it. And then the other team, we went out after lunch to see what they were doing, and And there's the two Japanese guys with they got the white shirts, the ties are tucked in. We got oil dripping off the ceiling, and they got pry bars under this machine they're trying to move. And I got 8 engineers and managers standing over here with their mouths open. And I said, I like these kind of consultants. This is good. This is good. We don't get any PowerPoints. We don't get anything. They just do stuff. And so we set up the first cell that day, and off we went. They spent the rest of the week at Jake Break, doing the same kind of stuff, and we just went from there. And they taught us how to run a Kaizen, what kind of paperwork to use, how to think about things differently, how to look at it differently. And myself and Koenigsegger, we said, this is the greatest strategic weapon we've ever seen before. We didn't think of it as cost reduction or anything else. This is a strategic weapon. If you can do this stuff, the strategic advantage you're going to get is just enormous. So we decided that, we said, look, whatever they tell us to do, we're going to do it, even if we think it's the stupidest thing we ever heard. And I would say about 50% of the time, we thought it was the stupidest thing we ever heard. And then of course, about 50% of the time, when we set up a cell or something, it didn't work. And we said, one thing is, we're never going to let it go backwards. Even though it didn't work, we know why we made it, and we know that the rationale and the mentality of why we built the cell was correct. The fact that it didn't work, we're going to have to fix that, but we can't let it go back. So we never let it go back. And I think those decisions were the best things we ever did, because we just said, we're going to do whatever they tell us, and we're not going to let it go back. And that just started building a lot of momentum for us. And then when I
just want to end it right now. It's like that easy. Like, don't listen and don't go back.
And then how are we going to spread this to the rest of Danaher was the issue, right? And because we asked Shin-Jiu-Jitsu to help us, and they said, no, we won't help you because Jacob's Break and Jacob's Chuck are so bad that we're not going to help you with the other companies until we fix those. So we had to figure out, okay, now what are we going to do? So we created a thing called the President's Kaizen. And this will work for any company. It was great for us. We took the 13 Danaher presidents, their VPs of operations. We took them to Japan for a week and took them to 8 different factories to show them what lean looked like. At night, we did some training and things with them. And when they came back, every 6 weeks, we created the President's Kaizen in one of our factories. And we took all the presidents for 3 days. We couldn't get them for a whole week, but for 3 days, they had to go do a Kaizen in somebody's factory. And of course, their first reaction was, this is crazy. I'm a president of a company. Why am I on somebody's shop floor in my blue jeans moving stuff around? But the gains we got were so astronomical all the time that it only took them like 2 of these times. And then they just cleared their calendar and they said, I don't want to miss one of these. They're unbelievable. I'm learning so much, because we knew that if we wanted to put just-in-time into all of Danaher, it would never happen unless the presidents of these companies drove it. And then we knew they would never drive it unless we taught them what it was. And so the President's Kaizen turned out to be a really big deal. And getting these guys on board so that they would accept this and drive it in their own company, that was a very important step, I thought. Wow. We had cases, for example, one of the companies we went to, I forget which one it was, all of the Danaher companies at that time were different. There was nothing that was the same. They were just companies that the Rails brothers had purchased along the way. And we went in there one day and they said, yeah, we have a problem. We need to hire more people because we just can't keep up. We said, okay, well, don't hire them till after the Kaizen. So we took one operation from 14 people down to 3 to do the same work in 3 days. I said, okay, you don't need to hire anybody. Here's 11 people. What? So those are the kind of gains we were getting all the time. So this just sort of snowballed. And then when I had the opportunity to become a CEO of a company called Wiremold, and so I took that, and when I went there, it was a family-run company, about 100 million in sales only. And
the last one only did $1 billion. This one's only 100 million. Our audience right now is just like, what?
Well, anyway, it's a family-owned company, but it was really in trouble. Their sales have been flat, and earnings had dropped 80% in the 2 years before I got there. And I said, the only way I know how to fix this is to do a lot of lean and we'll introduce the Toyota production system and make this thing kind of work. So we started a very aggressive Kaizen program. I did the training of the first 150 people myself, set the targets for.
As the CEO, you did the training.
Yeah, as
yourself.
the CEO. Well, people have to understand that you're serious. And if the CEO is not involved and not doing the training and not on the shop floor with the people, they don't think you're serious. You can't come in and say, all right, we're going to make this drastic change from batch to flow and to lean, and I'm going to go back in my office now and let me know how it's going.
Right.
That's not going to work. That's crazy, right? So I did the first training of the first 150 people. I helped run the first bunch of Kaizens. We had Shin Jiu-Jitsu helping us, and we made a lot of progress. I mean, we established 5 key things that we wanted to do. These were our operational excellence goals. We said 100% on-time customer service, not 98%, but 100%. We wanted a 50% reduction in defects every year. We wanted a 20% productivity gain every year. We wanted 20 times inventory turns as a baseline level. We were at 3, by the way. And then we wanted 5S in the visual control every place. So of course, when I announced these targets, everybody thought, he's crazy, this doesn't make any sense, right? But after a while, and we started to do Kaizen, and we started to get a lot of gain. And as people saw the gains and then these 5 crazy targets became something that was just normal. That was just what we do. That's what we do here. That was our culture, if you will. That was how we were going to do things. And
How long did that take about?
well, over time, I mean, about a little over 9.5 years, we quadrupled the size of the company. We increased the earnings by over 13 times. We increased the enterprise value by 2,500% over that time frame. And we cut our lead times, our productivity went up, our quality went up, our inventory turns went up. You could go down the list, everything got better. Took us about 9.5 years. We acquired 21 companies during that period. And these were smaller companies that we acquired by reducing inventory and then buying next small company. So if we could buy a company that had 3 times inventory turns, we knew that we could get that to 6 times turns by the first year. We could get it to 8 times turns by the second year, probably 10 times or a little better by the third year. So what we found was by doing those kind of things, we could get all of our cash back from an acquisition within about 3 years every time. So acquisitions became pretty risk-free for us, and we were buying our small ankle-biting competitors because they were a pain in the neck. It was better to buy them and just absorb them than fight them in the market.
Right.
So we kept buying these guys, and everything worked out well. I mean, our base business doubled, the acquisitions helped the next double, and it all came from lean and freeing up the inventory. Our inventory turns went from 3 to 18, so we freed up a ton of cash, and we used it to buy other companies and to invest in new products.
So we've got, your experience is like billion-dollar companies, $100 million companies. What if we zoom that down to a small company that did less than $1 million, and you got the phone call and they're like, Art, we're losing money. What would your knee-jerk first move be to just say, okay, you're a small company, but you've got this problem. If they could afford to convince you to come out of retirement, you walked in the door and they gave you the keys to the castle, what would be step 1 for you?
I would ask, what's your inventory turns? How much inventory do you have? Because most companies like that, they turn an inventory 2 times, 3 times. So that's all cash that's laying on the floor. You're the owner, and you're letting all this money sit there sleeping. Why don't you pick it up and put it to work? It's a big asset right there, and you're just wasting it. It's a total waste, because the way you're making things and the way you're doing things is forcing that to occur. So let's change the way you do things, so then we can pick up that money and invest it and get you out of the problem that you're in of losing money.
So what about if it's like a semi-custom manufacturer? They're not building to stock, say, they're manufacturing to order. Same scenario, like like in our world, it would be like a kitchen manufacturer. Like nobody's building kitchens and putting them on the shelf and waiting for them to ship. We're bringing in the order, building it, and shipping it.
Yeah.
But you know, all the struggles are the same, and they're all real. Where would you start with a guy like that?
Well, I think you want to start by trying to make that kitchen flow through the business, right? Not make it in batches and all that kind of thing, but make it flow. And if you do that, the productivity gains you're going to get are very, very high. The time it takes you to build one, because you can say, oh, but these are custom, but they're not really. They're just a bunch of boxes, right? There's nothing.
Amen.
It's just they're different size boxes, but they're boxes, and you build a box the same way every single time, right? And so, you know, you can set up your jigs and other things so that you can fixture these things in a way that's very, very quick, and that I have this size box, that size box. Doesn't matter that every kitchen is a little slightly different measurement. I'm just making boxes. So if I can learn how to make boxes efficiently, I can make a kitchen efficiently. And if I can do that, and I can reduce the lead times, I can take on more customers. I'm going to have lower costs. I'm going to have better quality, and I don't need all this inventory laying around, right? And if then I want to go back to my supplier companies, because maybe I have to make a cherry cabinets, and then I have to make walnut cabinets, and then I have to make pine cabinets or whatever. I need the raw material to be able to come in here when I need it. I don't want to buy 4 months worth of it and have it sit around. I'd like to get it where I can do that. So I'm going to have to work with my suppliers to get that to happen, right?
And suppliers aren't always cooperative because they're in the batch world.
Sure.
We always tell people you have to take the big batch from your supplier and come down to a flow state, and your customer also doesn't care, so it's batch back to the customer.
Absolutely. We had that at Waramo when we first started. We said, okay, as we move to lean, one of the things we need and we want to have is if you want to supply us, you have to deliver daily. Everybody said no, right? We started with our cardboard box suppliers because they're generally pretty close. They're within a half hour, an hour of drive. And so we went to all three. We had three of them. We had a big cardboard box warehouse. And we said, okay, we want you to deliver daily. They all said no. So we kept going back to them until we finally got one to say, okay, I'll try it. So he started, and then he said, well, I'm having trouble with this because my setup times are too long, and I can't keep up with the different variety you guys want. Fine. Sent a Kaizen team to his factory, cut the setup time. He was so happy because now that gain that was for us, he could use with his other customers. So he was ecstatic. So that went along pretty well. And then the bundles were coming in, and we were having to put Kanban cards on them and deliver them out because we got rid of the warehouse. And we would, when it came every day, we'd put them out right on the line that used that particular box. And then we said, well, this is crazy. Why are we doing this? Let's teach him how to do the bundles with the Kanban cards. So we did that, and we went and did Kaizen for him to show him how to do that. And then he could bring them in, and we could just put them right on the shop floor. We didn't have to do anything. And then the other two guys came back, and they said, hey, what happened to our orders? And we said, well, we asked you to deliver every day, and you said no. Oh, we didn't know you were serious. No, we can do that now. Sorry, too late. This guy has all the business. And we did the same thing with our steel vendor. When I got there, we had 4 months worth of cold roll steel. 4 months were stacked up everywhere. We got that down to 2 days. And the steel supplier was outside of Baltimore, Maryland. We were in Hartford, Connecticut. We were getting 6 to 8 truckloads of steel a day, and we went from 4 months to 2 days. Now, same thing. We said, we want you to deliver daily. We had a couple of suppliers. They all said no. We just kept going back, and eventually we got that to happen. It was good for them, by the way, because with it now they had a steady load of a customer that every day we gave them orders, every day. So there was always a base load for them to make for us every day. Yeah. They were happy, we were happy, but you had to work at it. If you go there and the guy says, no, I won't do it, and you give up, then you gave up. I always think, I like the expression, I think Henry Ford said this, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right.
You'll be right, yeah.
Right, and it's the same thing. if you ask someone to deliver daily and they say no, and you go, oh gee, we tried, then you gave up. So of course it's not going to happen.
Now you mentioned a bunch of times like these Kaizens. You're doing Kaizen at Wire Mold, and you're sending Kaizen teams to your vendors. Like, what does a typical Kaizen look like? And do you do a Kaizen event, like a week-long thing? Or, I mean, we have a mutual friend, Paul Akers. He's got the 2-second lean thing going on. He doesn't do Kaizen events. And so we've got, same with Jeff Koss. He loves doing Kaizens. And so, is it 2 roads to get to the same place? Or how do you handle a Kaizen?
Well, for the most part, our Kaizens were 1 week long. And that really started because we were using the Shin-Jiu-Jitsu consultants to help us. And of course they had to travel from Japan. So we couldn't have them pop in for a day. When they came, we had to use them for a whole week. And so that just became the sort of normal time that we did a Kaizen. I told you the president's Kaizen at Danaher, we did 3 days because we couldn't get the president's schedule, right? Those are pretty effective. I think if you go less than 3 days, you don't get much effect from it, really. And because, in the course of a week, we would move a lot of equipment, we would change a lot of things, we would alter equipment sometimes, and we got enormous gains in 1 week. We could get tremendous gains. We could, pretty much on a setup reduction Kaizen, we could pretty much always reduce the setup time by 90% in 1 week. Wow. On any kind of equipment. It wasn't just one kind of equipment, almost anything.
And so at that point you're ready. You kind of know what you want to do. You have your electricians ready, your mechanical guys ready.
Everything.
And you say, okay, we're doing this Kaizen, everybody ready, let's go. And so the teams are
That's
prepped.
right, yeah. If we needed riggers, because the equipment was big, we knew we were going to have to move some big stuff, we'd bring the riggers in and we'd sort of get ready for that. And then we would do the homework before the Kaizen, so we didn't have to start looking up things when we got to the Kaizen. We knew all the things, what was the current state. We knew all the current state. And then we also set goals for where we wanted it to be at the end of the week, which were pretty aggressive goals. And we almost always beat those. Even though at first everybody said, this is crazy, we can't do this. Yeah, we did, every week, every time.
Week. and so do you have somebody managing that? Like, let me rephrase. Who manages the Kaizen? If I wanted to have a Kaizen in my factory, who would manage?
Yeah, there's a protocol, if you will. First of all, we had a sheet that looks like an A3 to start the whole Kaizen. We said, this is the current state, this is the future state, this is what we want to do. We had done the homework on that. We created a Kaizen team, and we said, a Kaizen team functions like jury duty. If you're called, you got to go. You can't say no. So, and we wanted everybody on a Kaizen team, so we were forcing people onto Kaizen teams.
So that was a rotating thing. It's like you,
yeah.
Cross-functional department thing.
Yeah. We didn't just try and focus on the top 15% of the people or something. Everybody in the factory, everybody had to be on Kaizen teams. We kept a record who'd been on, how many had been on. So then we created a team leader and a sub-leader to do the Kaizen. And then we had either an outside consultant like Shin-Jiu-Jitsu or our internal Kaizen promotion office. They functioned like internal consultants. So either Shin-Jiu-Jitsu was the advisor to the Kaizen team, or our internal guys were the advisors to the Kaizen team. So that was kind of the structure. And then as we went through the week, every day at 4 o'clock, we had what we called a leaders meeting. So the team leader had to come and present to everybody else, and myself included as the CEO. I always went to those. What did we do today? What did we achieve, and what do we plan to do tomorrow? So that way, senior management and the consultants could weigh in and say, oh, no, that's not good. You didn't do it. You got to do this tomorrow. Your plan for tomorrow is no good. You got to do this. So we had the team saying this, but then we had structure on top of that, checking in with them every afternoon. What are you doing? What did you accomplish? Do we need to go help these guys a little bit more? They're drifting off over here, that kind of thing. So this wasn't a game. We were serious about getting these big goals. during that week, and so we did everything we could to make sure that happened.
I see it a lot, and I've even been guilty of it. We kind of set a Kaizen team loose, and then it's like, well, let's see what they do, or let's hope for the best.
No hoping.
If you ask Lynn, she'll tell you hope is for the weather and Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No. I mean, if you're going to do this, you have to be serious about it, and you have to be on top of it, and you got to push it. I mean, sometimes if you don't push people, they won't make progress at all.
Right.
They'll back up to the simplest target they can hit. It's just human nature. It's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. And so you gotta push it to the next level. You gotta say, you want to go from 1 hour to 2 hour. No, you got to get under 10 minutes. Setup time, right? So people, what? 10 minutes? That's crazy. We managed to do it just about every time.
And have you ever had? I mean, you're at the CEO level. You had situations where your leadership team is not buying in.
Sure.
And what do?
Well, again, I just make sure they're on a lot of Kaizens. For example, when I first got to Wiremo, the first Kaizens that we did, my whole senior management team, I put them on Kaizen teams, even though they didn't want to. I mean, the marketing and sales guys, we don't want to do this. This doesn't have anything to do with that. Yes, it does. Get on the team, right? My finance guy was a very smart guy, and I said, Ori, I want you to be on this setup reduction team. All right, I don't know anything about setup reduction. I'm the finance guy. We're closing the books this week. We got the auditors coming in for the end. We got this, and he had a zillion excuses. I said, no. Get out there and get on the team. I want you to learn something. So he finally gave up. He goes on the team. Now he's the finance guy. He figures if you're going to reduce setup, it has to be capital intensive, because most people think that way.
Right. Yeah.
So he's the finance. He's going to keep track of how much money do we spend during the week. His team went from 90 minutes to 5 minutes. They spent $100. So what happened? What happened was he became one of the biggest advocates I had for doing this, because he was smart enough, which most people unfortunately are not. He was smart enough to say, gee, if we can reduce the setup from 90 minutes to 5 minutes on this machine, think of the impact to our customers and our costs and everything we can do it on all machines. He understood the strategic aspect of that right away, but most people don't get that. So I think that the way to convert your team and your man, put them on a lot of Kaizens. It's a learn by doing kind of thing. And it drives the culture, it drives the learning, it drives the cost, everything.
So a lot of people, and especially in North America, we're paranoid to get it wrong, right? Because we're going to get in trouble. We're going to get yelled at if we get it wrong. Like when things don't go right, or if you have a Kaizen is not as successful as you were hoping, then is that okay?
Well, it's what happened, and you just do it again.
Just do it again.
Do it again. I mean, for example, on things like setup, we could get 90% reduction in setup the first week maybe, but let's say we went from 3 hours to 30 minutes. Most companies would say, that's wonderful, stop. No. Let's go from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. Let's go from 20 to 10. Let's go from 10 to 5 to 1. So we had a setup reduction like that. We went from 3 hours and 10 minutes to 1 minute. But it didn't happen in one Kaizen, it happened in a several, because you have to keep going back. You got to keep, it's just always can get better, always can get, I mean, it's sort of like, Kaizen means continuous improvement. And it's a really funny thing. If I said to you, Brad, we're going to start a continuous improvement program, and you say, oh, Art, that's great. And the first question is, when do you think we'll be done?
When are we done? Yeah.
I say, wait a minute, what don't you understand about continuous? but that's normal. That's human nature. When do you think we're going to be done? Yeah, get out of here.
And I mean, we just attended a talk that you did, and you had probably like the best quote right at the end that I believe that your Japanese mentors had told you.
Yeah, he said, Byrne-san, if you don't try something, no knowledge can visit you. And I think that's true. It's you can't stop, and if it doesn't work, sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do, but sometimes they don't. Then just go back again. do it again. You know, the gains are all there. You just have to dig them out.
Yeah. What did I hear the other day? That the fortune you're seeking is in your waste.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, if you think of a company as nothing but a group of people, a bunch of processes trying to deliver value to a set of customers, that's all it is. Doesn't matter whether you're a hospital, a manufacturing company, or anything. It's just those three things. So the processes that you have are giving you the results that you have. But companies, they focus on the results, not on the process. If you don't change the processes, the results are going to stay the same. But it's hard to get people to understand that. That's why most companies run on the basis of make the month. You know, we're going to make the month. Well, what is the month? Well, it's something we made up last year at the budget time. It's not a real thing. And it takes us 3 weeks to close the books at the end of the month, and then we'll have a big review. So wait a minute, you're going to spend 2 or 3 days analyzing and having a big review of something that happened a month ago. So you're always looking backwards at something that already happened. You can't change something that already happened, but you're going to spend a lot of your time working on that? I would say that's a waste. Why don't we do things that fix the processes so I can have better results going forward because I fixed my process? So it seems like, what?
Well, when you say it, it seems so normal, but it is counterintuitive to most.
Well, I think one of the reasons, something you mentioned a couple minutes ago, and this is just my own philosophy, that certain people are, now I lost the word, but okay. you got two kind of managers. One that is sort of a top-down kind of manager, right? And then you got people that are insecure. That's the word I was looking for, insecure. And we're all insecure to a certain extent, but some people are very insecure. It doesn't mean they're not smart and they don't become CEOs. But if someone's insecure or is a top-down manager, they can't abide things that don't work. They can't have mistakes. They can't have that. If there is a mistake, they at least have to have someone else to blame, not them, right? And because lean is always, it's nothing but a series of leaps of faith. Every time you make a change and do something, in the back of your mind is always this question of, well, what if it doesn't work, right? And so the insecure person or the top-down manager, they can't do that. They just won't let it happen. They can't deal with the fact of what if it doesn't work. And so, you know, but the companies who are willing to do that, willing to try and aren't so insecure, they're going to have a huge opportunity because the rest of the industry maybe is too insecure to do it. They won't try it.
And I would say the majority of our audience is in an industry where nobody, I mean, like 1.1% of people understand lean and are doing something about it actively.
Yeah.
So like you said, what a strategic weapon. I love that. I love that analogy. You saw lean and you got your head around it and you're like, this isn't a way to make things better. This is a weapon.
Yeah. Well, it was funny when Koenigsegger and I said, boy, this is the biggest strategic weapon we ever saw. And so we were having lunch one day with the head of Shin Jiu-Jitsu, Mr. Iwata. We said, Iwata-san, this is the best strategic weapon we've ever seen. How does Toyota let you guys loose to go out and teach other people how to do this? And he just looked at us and he went, ho, 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 ho. He says, look, he says, I can tell you about the Toyota production system. I can take you and show you the Toyota production system, but I bet you can't go home and do it. And I thought that was something that was true then, it's true now, it'll always be true. Because I can tell you, show you, but it's really hard to do this on your own, particularly if you're risk averse. And when the leaps of faith happen, you don't want to take them, you're not going to make any progress. And so I think it's really important for most companies to have someone come and help them do lean, an outside, somebody with experience to help do it. Eventually maybe you can do it on your own. But I don't think there's very many companies that can just start on their own and be successful. It's just not, in my mind, it's not possible.
And isn't that funny? Like everybody's kind of like consultants, you know, maybe taboo and kind of have a negative connotation to them. There's all kinds of sayings. But when you want to learn how to play the guitar, like the first thing you do is hire an instructor and go take guitar lessons or piano lessons. Or, like there's some kind of an instruction there, but when it comes to work, we're like, well, I don't want to, you know, that guy's expensive, but what's the flip side of your production doubling with the same staff?
I know. Well, it's kind of you know, the Kaizen consultants, particularly the Japanese that we used, they used to call themselves insultants. They said, we're not consultants, we're insultants, because they were insulting us all the time. That's no good, this is no good, you're no good, you should be fired, you know. But they weren't consultants in the traditional sense that we think of with PowerPoints. We never got a PowerPoint from them, we never got a written report from them, nothing. They just came in and showed us where the waste was and how to fix it, how to eliminate it. You know, it was on the floor doing stuff, it was all by doing. And so they were more like trainers than they were consultants, right? There was no reports. You know, we would take them out when they came. They'd come like on a Friday night. We'd play golf with them on Saturday. On Sunday, we'd be with them all week, and we'd take them out to dinner every night and pump them for information all the time. Our whole thing was pump them for information, more information, ask them a lot of questions, right? And that's how we learned was doing that kind of thing. But they were just on the shop floor, show you, this is no good, this is no good, this is no good, what do you want to do? And then they could show you how to fix it, but they mostly wanted you to come up with it. You know, they would aim you and whatever, but you were the one that had to fix it. So
I love that.
So it's a different, the term consulting is not really what you'd expect with these guys. And I think a really good lean consultant, if you will, they have to be willing to fire the customer. And if you get a regular consultant, they'll never fire the customer. They just want more money from the customer. A good lean consultant, they'll try, and if the customer's not going to do it, they just say, I'm not coming back. You're fired, Mr. Customer. Otherwise, they're not really a good lean consultant, in my opinion. If you're not willing to fire the customer occasionally.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. We found that probably within our first couple of years, we got really, really good at sniffing out terrible customers. Like if we caught a hint of them saying, oh, those idiots on the shop floor, or you know, they'll never get it, or they don't show up to the meetings, or they're always just talking about the money. And like right in that meeting, we're like, well, this sounds good. Thanks very much for your time. We're super busy. You know, I don't think we can help, and we get out of Dodge because we know, you know, we tried it, and you know, those crash and burn fast, and for what?
Yeah. Well, I think that's important when you think about a lean consultant, but doing this on your own, pretty difficult, I think, almost impossible.
Wow. All right. Well, I mean, we've consumed an enormous amount of your time, and I thank you for talking with us.
All right.
Is there any closing words that you would give small entrepreneurs, not in the billion-dollar industry, some inspiration?
I would just say that Kaizen is good for you. And, you know, it's like we said before, if you don't try something, no knowledge can visit you. So, you know, if you want to leave all the money laying around on the shop floor, sleeping, that's up to you. But I think you're kind of stupid to do that.
So all of our alarm clocks should be Kaizen, Kaizen, Kaizen to wake up that money.
Well, I know I've taken people on factory tours and just go in a room where it's like an inventory. They say, shh, be quiet. We don't want to wake up the sleeping money, you know.
I'm going to footnote you, but I'm going to be using some of these lines I've learned today, Art. This has been fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
All right.
Really amazing to meet you. Everybody, Art Byrne, the lean turnaround. Get it, read it, change your life, and don't forget, Kaizen's good for you.
Kaizen is good for you. Okay.
All right.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Art.